You're listening to a podcast from EvidenceNetwork.ca, making evidence matter in Canadian health policy.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Shannon Sampert, if you don't already know me. I am the new Editor-in-Chief and Director of Evidence Network. I took over from Nora LaRue in April, and Evidence Network has been in operation for about 7 years now. Began by Nora LaRue at the University of Manitoba with a focus on public health policy. And when she determined that she was wanting to walk away, I was on a leave at the University of Winnipeg, from the University of Winnipeg, working as the first and only female op-ed editor for the Winnipeg Free Press. So she approached me and said, hey, I have this idea. You're going back to the University of Winnipeg. Why not take on Evidence Network? And I jumped at the chance to do that. So as I said, I took over Evidence Network in April, and since taking over, I made the decision that we wanted to broaden the idea of public policy or health policy a little bit more outside of just the sort of strict idea of health policy to health policy and social justice issues, because public policy can be read in a number of different ways. What that does then is it opens the doors to a number of different experts that then can participate in commentaries and op-eds. Things like criminal justice and housing, climate change, Indigenous issues, murdered and missing Indigenous women, legalization of marijuana. These things too can also fit into healthcare policy, but they haven't necessarily been put into that box of health through the Evidence Network of health policy. So I want to expand what we've been defining of health policy and Evidence Network. I just need to get some water. So in essence, this is my 6-month check-in, a chance to let some of my current funders know how we're doing, as well as to meet with future and potential funders to gain some insight and to sort of figure out what we should focus on in the year to come, what ideas you would like me to bring to the fore, what options we should be talking about. Should we talk about podcasts? Should we be doing op-eds, etc.? There's a team here that support me at Evidence Network. You've been talking a lot, I'm sure, to Nancy Armstrong-Brager. She's the person that has been sending out emails that you've talked to RSVP. She's here with me today. But you've also, if you've done any of the op-ed work with us, you've talked to Kathleen O'Grady. She is the eyes and ears to the ground of Evidence Network. She is my managing editor, and she is a spectacularly good editor. She works out of Ottawa here as the managing editor, and is really amazing in terms of the work that she can do with the media companies that she works with. As well, we have Kelly Dawn Moss that works out of my office at the University of Winnipeg, and she's our social network guru. She's a part-time student and a part-time worker with us in our office, and she's also part of a team. So Evidence Network isn't just me or Kathleen. It's a group of us that are working really, really hard, and I'm sure that you can appreciate the hard work that Nancy's done in getting you here today. All around, I'm very lucky that these people have got our back. So a couple of housekeeping items I just need to mention very, very quickly. First of all, we are going to be asking you questions. At some point or another, we're going to be doing some brainstorming sessions, and so I am hard of hearing, and that will mean that I will walk up to you at some point or another in time and ask you to repeat things. Nancy will also be working as my interpreter. Don't be frightened by that. I do this with my Canadian politics students. I walk up to them and they kind of get freaked out. Don't be too freaked out by it. It's just my way of dealing with my hard of hearing. And I was flying, and I have a cold, so it's kind of like a trifecta. I was like, ugh. So please forgive me. I have a cold, too. That's another thing. So if I have a gasping, coughing fit, you're all health professionals or have been around health professionals, you know how to call 911, right? She'll do that for me, I'm sure. The other thing I want to point out is I've given you little gold boxes, and those are chocolates from Winnipeg. They're called Russian Mint, and they're world famous. I'm not allowed to leave Winnipeg now to go visit my family in Edmonton, so it's a little bit of home from my city of Winnipeg, a little bit of love from home. And that's the housekeeping items. The other one I wanted to mention, though, is at 11:30 Ottawa time, I am giving a Canadian politics exam in Winnipeg, and I promised my students that they could ask me questions by email. And so I will have my phone on at 11:30, And so if I'm answering questions, please do not be put off by that. It's just me saying to the students, how would you answer that question? As they go, I don't understand this. Well, what do you think the best answer would be? That's basically what it's going to be. I'm not trying to be rude. Okay, so we have an interesting day ahead for us here today. I'm going to be talking to you about Evidence Network. I'm going to give you my 6-month check-in, tell you how we've been doing, comparing it to last year. And then I'm really thrilled. We're going to be giving you a roundtable with our expert discussion, Drs. Avi-Lynn Bourgeot and Colleen Flood. We'll speak for about 20 minutes, and then they're going to take questions and answers. They're going to tell you what it is like to be experts and to work with Evidence Network, the kind of reception that their op-eds have received, how they've worked collaboratively as a result of their op-eds, and what experiences they've had. Then we'll have a brainstorming session, because I need to hear from you folks about what it is that you need for public policy. What kind of op-eds work best for you? Do you want to see more posters? Would you like to see some brain teasers? Do you want podcasts? What is it you're looking for so that we can get your policy out into the public and into the policymakers' mindset so that we can make some real interesting changes in terms of policy. Then we'll have lunch. It's always important. Mother's down, always eat lunch, and always drink coffee too. And then we'll have our media experts. And I'm so thrilled. Bob Cox is coming, Andre Picard, and Jennifer Ditchburn, some amazing people that will be able to talk to you about the changing business model that is occurring in Canada. Because frankly, it's not the same business model that was 2 years ago, 10 years ago. And it's changed, and it's changing so dramatically. So we'll have an opportunity to meet with these experts and to find out on the ground specifically what is happening in Canada and how that affects you as people who are trying to get information out about public policy. We'll start. In September, I approached a colleague of mine who does research on Crown corporations to see if he was interested in doing an op-ed for Evidence Network about the Trudeau government and the work they're doing on dispensing marijuana once it's legalized in September of 2018. Well, this is going to be a policy area under great scrutiny as the clock begins to tick down on legalization. Dr. Malcolm Bird was quite enthusiastic, and he wrote a piece that was controversial, because Malcolm is always controversial, but it was interesting and it was well supported as well by evidence. We published it. Before we did that, though, we vetted it to make sure he wasn't saying anything that was untrue, and we gave it the green light. And so we published it, and it was picked up first by Policy Options, and it didn't stop there. For the next couple of weeks, it went and snowballed and snowballed. It was published across Canada and even into the United States. Victoria Times Colonist, Lout Journal, Vancouver Province, Trail Daily Times, Kelowna Daily Courier, Winnipeg Free Press, New Brunswick Telegraph Journal, the Huffington Post, Ottawa Life, Windsor Star, Policy Options, Media Awareness Project. We've asked him if he wanted to have it translated into French. It's now been published in La Presse and Le Devoir. Every time I contacted Malcolm to let him know he'd been published, he reacted with enthusiasm. His piece resulted in an interview. Can you change slide, please? His piece resulted in an interview with CJOB, the talk radio station in Winnipeg, and he was delighted with the information that was published. He said, I just was on CJOB on Monday with Jeff Courier. It was a lot of fun. The next time, he was notified some smaller pieces have picked it up, and he said, gee, Shannon, why do we waste all this time on academic articles when we get so much more out of newspaper pieces? It all seems like such a waste of time. When notified that the Free Press had picked it up here in Winnipeg, he said, it's amazing. I've never gotten so much out of a piece. Thanks so much. He's hooked. In essence, he found what he was doing was given so much salience as a result of publishing in an op-ed that I know in the future he will do much more work with us as a result. He got much more feedback. Publishing an op-ed piece once with us in Evidence Network, 18 times published across the country, than he ever did with any of the stuff that he got published in the academic journal. And that's what we do. We take cutting-edge, evidence-based research from academics working on policy. We work with them to take the 800 pages of data and turn it into 850 words of pithy comment. We shop it out into Canadian media, we translate it into French if we need it, and we shop it out into French commentary as well, French newspapers as well. Our managing editor, Kathleen O'Grady, knows the editors at the major outlets very well. Her working relationship with these editors means that they count on her to deliver exceptional quality. She doesn't let them down. They will actually contact her and say, I'm going on vacation. This is the person who's on taking over while I'm gone. Can you make sure you send the stuff? It's going to be a very quiet period. So they know her that well that they will trust her to do stuff for her. We don't just do op-eds. We link journalists with health policy experts to provide access to credible, evidence-based information for media stories. We also supplement with podcasts and videos wherever possible. The podcasts are put up on our website for Creative Commons, so if an organization wants to take it and put it on their website, they're free to use it at will. And it makes wonderful, wonderful work. And we monitor news daily to determine trends and potential hotspots for commentary. Kathleen O'Grady and I are news junkies. We study the House of Commons and the legislative sessions. We know what's coming up. We study the news. We know what the hotspots are. And we pay attention, just like you do in your offices as well. But then we contact the experts and we say, this is going to be big. You should be ready to go. And we talk to the newspapers and tell them we're getting ready. Mostly because of what Kathleen does with the editors. She knows as well when the downtimes are in the newspapers. Hint, summertime. Hint, Christmas time. Hint, any time when people are going on vacation. So she will work with them as well to make sure our stuff is in the newspaper. And like I say, they will contact her to let her know when they're going on vacation. They trust her, and they trust us as a result. And the stuff that we publish always has URLs, so that if there's something questionable, they can go to the URL to make sure the information we're providing is sustainable or substantiated. And that is important too. There will never be an anti-vaxxer on our website, and that's important. So the stuff is then, all the op-eds are then put on our website as well. It's available through Creative Commons, and you can click on it anytime you want to. Go ahead, next slide. We are really successful at this job. I wouldn't be here telling you about it if this is something we work really very good at. I'm very proud to say we are very successful at it, and we're getting better every year. In 2016, we wrote 92 original op-eds. Our experts wrote 92 original op-eds, and we were published 700 times. From January to September, we had 118 op-eds written. We've already surpassed 2016, and we've been published 685 times. So we will surpass the 2016 numbers. Now think about it this way, because I'm a stats nerd. I love numbers. Every second day, we are sending out an original op-ed for production every second day. And every day, there is an original three original EN op-eds being published in a newspaper somewhere in Canada, either in a newspaper or on a media website. And it's not just that information. It's where it's published as well. In 2016, the national newspapers, 52. We're going to surpass this in 2017. We're already at 46 in the national newspapers. And the mass circulations in 2016 was 182. We've already beaten that. for 207 in mass circulation. That means the big Montreal, Vancouver, Hilton, Le Soleil University fairs. These are good numbers. The nationals are Globe and Mail, La Presse, Le Devoir, National Post, Toronto Star, and CBC News. The Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail are the largest national papers you're going to find in Canada, and we're in them. And if we aren't in them, people like Andre Picard are talking about us, or relying on us for information. So here we have the 2016-2017 numbers, I think, that are also really revealing. Just last water. The Globe and Mail 2016 had 14. We're at 13. We're going to surpass it again. The Toronto Star is 11. 15. We've beaten it. The National Post is at 1 and a 0. I don't think the National Post is going to be that interested in us again this year because of the conversation, and that's fine. The National Post, however, is not a national paper anymore anyway. They're not publishing in Saskatchewan or Manitoba. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it's going. Maclean's magazine is an interesting one. They've never published with us before. We now have 2 articles. Both of them were articles that compared Canada to the United States on healthcare. Remarkably strong op-eds that Kathleen O'Grady worked with and got published in Maclean's. We're really happy about that. Le Devoir, we're going to beat them again. La Presse again. Stat News is an American publication. We're getting them now. We're happy about that. CBC News is an interesting outlier. We've got less publication in CBC News this year than last year. What we are finding, however, CBC News has stopped picking up our pieces, but what they are doing is they are now using our pieces for background and calling our Evidence Network reporter, op-ed writers and saying, we'd like to do a piece on you. So here's an example. I did a piece on male suicide, men's suicide. It's a health policy that no one is talking about. When you think about the person most likely to commit suicide, you think adolescents, you think teenagers, you think Indigenous people. Well, unfortunately, it's men 40 to 55. Middle-aged men are most likely to commit suicide. So I wrote an op-ed on it. It says it's a health policy crisis no one is talking about. So CBC called me, and after I published it, put it up on our website. CBC called me. I went to CBC 180. They did an interview on that. As a result of doing the 180, I got on a Toronto talk show. And then, of course, went on Le Devoir and La Presse and all that kind of stuff. But it was only because it had been on the Evidence Network website that CBC picked it up, and I went national. And that's what CBC seems to be doing now, which is an interesting sort of way of taking advantage of the knowledge that we provide at Evidence Network. It's another sort of step. And it's really hard to monitor how often that happens, but it seems to be happening or occurring quite regularly. We try to get our experts to let us know when that happens, but, you know, it doesn't always happen. It's hard to track. Next slide, please. So what does this all mean in ad value? Well, if you had to buy an ad telling people about the dangers of feeding your kid too much junk food in the Globe and Mail, or if you had to buy an ad talking about the importance of a national pharmacare program, or if you had to buy an ad talking about the dangers of men creating, the dangers of 45 to 55-year-old men and suicide, it would cost you $2.3 million in ad value in 2017 with the type of op-eds we've been doing for you. That's the kind of value we bring you in ad value. We looked at the amount of op-eds we produced in 2017 so far. 46 op-eds in the top 6 papers, third of it, size of an ad, $15,000 each, $690,000. Next slide. Big city papers, 207, $5,000, 1 million plus. Smaller papers, 207, 517,000 plus. And then the D category, Brandon Sun, Yukon News Review. There you go. That's how much it would cost. And we do have a reach. We looked at our reach on a Facebook post that we did on a Kathleen O'Grady and Nora Lewis's piece on linking academic research with the public and policymakers. And this Facebook post reached 54,802 people. That one post. That's pretty impressive. One post. So if you were to buy an ad, the cost of that ad alone, you couldn't afford it. And we did it. It cost us nothing. We have a social media following that's quite impressive. 2,286 followers on Facebook. I'm an old woman, I still Facebook. Apparently kids don't anymore, but whatever. We have 12,000 Twitter followers, 1,100 subscribers to our monthly newsletters. We will post to Facebook all of the op-eds that we're doing. We will also tweet. And then we retweet. And then Kathleen, Nancy, and I will tweet again to our own personal accounts. Then we will boost. We'll pay for advertising and boost as we need to. And then we will tweet again. And then people like Andre Picard will boost ours and retweet. So it becomes a tweet and upon a tweet upon a tweet. You don't know how far it goes because it picks up. What's really surprising is you'll think that the kind of the viralness of the tweet is over, and I will wake up one morning and all of a sudden I'll have 11 new Twitter encounters, and I'll realize something that I had posted 3 months ago has suddenly gone viral again. That just happened a couple weeks ago on my suicide thing. Suddenly someone had woken up and read it and tweeted it out again. So it's always really surprising when that happens. So what are people saying about us? Well, here's a retweet from the Ontario Health Minister, Eric Hoffman, about Dr. Rosanna Zalatare's piece for Evidence Network titled, "It's Time to Talk About a Big Idea." From the Peterborough Examiner, how Peterborough will benefit from a higher minimum wage. Here we go, the Ontario Health Minister. Go ahead. Health Minister Jane Philpott, or former Health Minister Jane Philpott, about Reza Zabar's piece, "What Should We Be Paying For in Our Publicly Funded System?" From one of my favorite talks on how health systems can achieve the win-win of improved outcomes at lower cost, from Andre Picard to retweet. They're paying attention to us. The big question, because, what's the point if it doesn't translate to policy change? Does it? Yeah. If I could put that in star-spangled with confetti blazing, I would. I can't say it enough. Yes. It may not be right now, but it does. It sometimes is subtle. It may not be exact, but it does. We've seen it. We've seen it, for heaven's sake, with Bill Mordo and his decision on the small taxes, the small business taxes. We know there has been time and time again research done that if the media pay attention to a public policy, and Twitter pays attention to it, and Facebook pays attention to it, and the public pays attention to it, those people who make policy will pay attention to it. Right? There's research done in communications, the kind of research that I do every day in my little university office, for the little university nerd, media play an important role in setting the agenda on public policy. When they pay attention to a story, it raises its prominence in the minds of the public, and more importantly, in the minds of those who make decisions about how public money should be spent. We know that in every constituency office and every minister's office, there are staff that pay attention to the local and the national newspapers, as well as Twitter, as well as Facebook, all the social media. And they determine what's trending, what's captured people's attention, and what's important. As I say, it is not necessarily instantaneous, but the important thing is the media continues to be the conduit. They act as this important mediator between government policymakers, researchers, and the public. And despite the concerns about falling readership, newspapers remain important agenda setters for public policy decisions. Decision makers will pay attention to the op-ed pages. Reader surveys amongst public policy makers indicate that the first page they turn to are the op-ed pages. Now, that's not just coming from the voice of someone who used to be an op-ed editor. You know, I mean, I had, a very vested interest in saying that, but they really do turn to that page first. And so that's why it's still important, those op-ed pages. Good evidence-based research can also be the canary in the mine, because we can alert governments when something is coming down the pipe that they should be aware of. We can make them aware of potential problems that are coming up. We can be the canary in the mine. We can be the Picton. We can be the water crisis. We can be the Flint, Michigan. Right? And there are times, too, when we have seen very direct results. For example, we had an expert advisor, Marnie Brownwell. Her op-ed led to an invitation to testify before the Phoenix Sinclair inquiry into child maltreatment. The judge's testimonies reflected her op-ed material and her testimony in Winnipeg. Michael Law, one of our expert advisors, the Alberta's health minister said that Dr. Law's assistance in analysis of the impact of generic drug pricing changes and in communicating that information to my office and to the public through availability to the media greatly assisted in providing more evidence-informed public debate. And Eric Hoskins, again, who likes us apparently, the Minister of Health, wrote a 2014 Globe and Mail op-ed supporting a national pharmacare program, quoting and providing links to an EvidenceNetwork.ca op-ed. So that's where you see the actual importance of Evidence Network. Those are our golden moments. It's really nice when they happen. It's lovely when they happen. And those are the moments that we look back on. For health research, knowledge mobilization means an informed public that leads to the ability for increased patient advocacy. For university researchers, knowledge mobilization means academic research becomes accessible to non-academic audiences and supports collaboration to academic and non-academic partners. Knowledge mobilization helps make research useful to society by supporting engaged research from inception to impact. Universities are starting to realize, and university researchers are starting to realize the importance and the necessity of knowledge mobilization. It is no longer good enough for researchers and university researchers to sit in their labs or sit in their offices in front of their computers and come up with findings and then publish them in academic journals. They have to start getting into the public and talking to the public. I have a great example of that. It's actually an embarrassing example. I got SHRC funding a couple times, lucky me, and I got sent down to Tampa, lucky me, and with my co-researcher, Linda Trimble. And it was November. I was leaving Winnipeg in November to go to Tampa. Woo-hoo! So got ready to go, got my PowerPoint ready, got time off from school, got the students all ready. It was like planned everything. 3 days off, flew the airplane, got there, got into the room to present. One person showed up. I looked at him and I said, "You have to sit here for the whole presentation." He said, "Okay." He didn't leave, and we just basically went through it really quickly. We didn't quiz them. That was an expense to shirk. It's an expense to me. It's a blow to my ego, for heaven's sake, but it's an expense to me. But I could have done an op-ed and reached how many more people? As Malcolm said, how many more people could I have reached? How much more change could I have made as a result? It's also about branding. It's also about branding for universities. It's an opportunity for universities to raise their profile in so many important ways. How many times have I had students say to me, "I saw you on the news last night, Sampert," or "My dad saw you on the news last night, Sampert." I have a student that I haven't taught in 10 years. She calls me regularly and says, "Oh, Cliff saw you on the news last night." She still thinks you're crazy. Oh, that's good. I still comment. I do TVC all the time because they always ask me questions about elections. So I call them about from the pundit perspective because I do, like I say, I'm a stats nerd, so I do numbers. It's great for universities. It's great for universities because they get to see their funding in action. Anytime that there's money given out to universities for research funding, they get to see their funding in action. You come out of that ivory tower, and suddenly they see the real results of that ivory tower. It's really, really important. One of my contacts at the university in Auckland, New Zealand, has contacted me and said, "I love what Evidence Network is doing, and we're going to actually start following what Evidence Network is doing in Auckland." Because her university has funded a knowledge mobilization specifically for their university in Auckland. She's got a better budget than I do, frankly. But she says knowledge mobilization has become so important to them that they have set up a specific division on that alone. As her university has put it, in order to use your research, people need to know it exists, and they need to be able to access it. So they are using Evidence Network. They've taken some of our Creative Commons stuff. They're using our model, and I'm going to be flying down to Brisbane. Hopefully someone will come to that conference, and I'll actually be able to talk about more than 2 people there, but then I'm going to Auckland to talk to her about our model to help them implement their policy there. The United Kingdom is also implementing a similar model of what Evidence Network is using. Bristol, University of Bristol is doing the same thing. Sarah Childs got one of their grants at the University of Bristol to support her research on women in Parliament and to provide a report that she actually has made to Parliament, which is exciting and interesting as well. So I'm going to leave it at this. I haven't been in any academic journals, but I do get my tweets retweeted a lot. It's no longer publish or perish in academia. It's now publish, perish, tweet, blog, opine, and influence those policy makers. And do it because making evidence matters. And so I can take some questions as well, and then we're going to set up with the amazing Ivy and Colleen next, Ivy, Lynn, and Colleen next too. So yeah, I can take some questions. Do you have any questions for me now? Yes.
I do. I'm Andrea from CADIS, Canadian Agency for Drugs and Technologies in Health. And we follow you. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having us. Thank you for doing this. All the people that write, like when you contact them to write, are they really good on their own and what you're getting is great? Or do you help them find like talk to me about the nitty-gritty of how that works?
Well, there are levels. There are some people who are just so good at it, they can pretty much do it on their own, and then there are some people that aren't. And Kathleen is used to all those different levels, and she is incredibly tactful and really good at hand-holding, and that's part of the job. I mean, we are aware that this is not something that comes natural to a lot of people. So, this is part of the job. And so what Kathleen will do is she will work with them in making sure that it goes from being to a really pithy, excellent journalistic piece.
But they are the pen.
Pardon me?
They're the first pen, like those people they're the first draft. Like they're...
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. They're the first draft. And it goes back and forth, and any changes are always approved by the writer. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
I'm Carrie Whitehurst. I'm a Senior Communications Specialist here at CFHI. How do you choose what your people are going to write about? Do you have an editorial calendar? Do you watch the news and then if something really hot comes up that it usurps something else?
Did you need me to do something?
No.
Oh, okay.
You have a question on
Oh, question from Colleen. Okay. Well, it's two ways of doing it. The ways of doing it are that if something hot is coming up, we will say, this looks like it's becoming a hot issue, and so we will contact an expert. So with Malcolm, I knew that marijuana was becoming an issue, and we also knew it was a slow time, so we could go after Malcolm and say, look at this, is becoming hot, and we have a slow time to take care of it. Or we will have organizations like Heart and Stroke, which will say, we would like you to start focusing on this. This is hot new research that we have coming out, and we would like you to talk about this research. And so it's two ways. We will either put stuff out that hasn't been talked about yet with new research, or we will say, this is information we really need to use. Yeah.
You've been listening to a podcast from EvidenceNetwork.ca, making evidence matter in Canadian health policy. Connect with the latest non-partisan health research from experts across Canada and around the world, or sign up to receive our free monthly e-newsletter at www.EvidenceNetwork.ca. You can also subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. EvidenceNetwork.ca is funded by the Canadian Foundation for Healthcare Improvement, the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, Research Manitoba, and the University of Winnipeg.